authors.
Okay,
Who was
that's enough.
described
That's
as
enough. That's
really
enough.
brutal. Occasionally, Susan would talk like a character from.
Yeah, that's Dr. Grande. For the most part, I like him. I don't. He's every once in a while he'll make snarky comments about politicians that I are kind of fond of or agree with, and that kind of turns me off because I like to listen to people that I think are objective, that aren't biased one way or the other. And obviously, he does have certain biases. But the thing is, everybody does. And can you really, I mean, unless you're like totally irrational, I mean, you're entitled to an opinion. But again, I think the thing is, people are absolutist about that. I just went on oh God, I just went on a site and I flipped out. I shouldn't have, but my bipolar kicked in. I guess, yeah. I always thought, what's wrong with me? I'm the only person in the world. A lot of things I do are very consistent with what other bipolar people do. They'll be perfectly normal for long periods in time, and then something will set them off, and they'll go absolutely fucking postal, just completely nuts. You know, I've got to learn to live with that and medicate it and everything like that. But that said, I'm a very bright guy. I went to law school. I always got good grades. I'm from a family of, it sounds like I'm bragging, I probably am. I'm like a Jewish mother, even though I'm not Jewish completely. Remember when the Nazis will try rounding people up? It's like I went to the Church of the Bethany Covenant, which I guess means I'm a wasp. My grandfather, who I really loved, was a smart guy. He basically, someone asked me who for my life influenced my political thinking, and I think it was him. He was not highly educated, but boy was he smart. Really smart guy. He was an electrician, and he could fix anything. He'd come over, and we were all college educated. We'd be sitting around with our thumbs stuck firmly up our asses. And I remember as a kid thinking, well, what's he doing? He's just sitting there looking at it, and then he's looking at something in a book. Isn't he going to do anything? Very calmly, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then he'd start working. What he was doing was organizing his thoughts and his plans on what to do with this problem. He wasn't just jumping into it. He was a very cerebral person. And if he hadn't been born dirt poor and gone to college, he could have run a business and been very successful. And that's what I think he wanted for his kids. Or anyways, that was the nice thing about the post-World War II period. GI Bill. My mom never, well, she was, yeah, the women were at a disadvantage. They didn't get a GI Bill. She got a business degree, but she made more money than my dad. She was an executive secretary for the chief executive officer of Standard Oil of Ohio. So I come from smart people. I might be a little bit effed up myself, but and I'm intellectually lazy because I defer to them. I listen to what smart people are saying that have analytical minds and that base. I like to think that they've based their opinions not on emotion. See, this is the thing about the conservative mind, and John Stuart Mill said this, and it really is true. Not all conservatives are stupid people, but most stupid people are conservative. Obviously, it's an appeal to motive why you have certain people at the very top that are conservative. Self-interest. They want to maintain their power. They're an elite in business situations. They want to keep their taxes low. They don't want to change things. And there are stupid people, not liberals, I'd say, but on the left. They're just, yeah, I was just watching another video. What were they saying? There are extremes on the left that are, there's no way you can say it's based on rationality and science. It is based on emotional. So all extremes are bad. But for tens of thousands of years, and again, this is nothing brilliant in me. I'm just parroting. I am parroting what I've read and what smart people have told me because I defer to intellect. Because that over the past 200 years has driven society. You look at society before the Industrial Revolution, before the Enlightenment. We didn't progress. Population didn't progress. Life expectancy didn't progress. Technology didn't progress. Hardly at all for thousands of years. Um, what did we get? We got breech loading muskets with black powder. During the Industrial Revolution, we finally got bullets in a case, and first bolt action rifles, and then fully automatic. And that's the whole argument with the Second Amendment. I mean, it's understandable why someone would think that the right to bear arms was a good thing in an agrarian pioneer society. And a musket that would take practically a minute to load. If you were really good, you could get off 3 shots, and that's if you were really practiced. It's like these throwing darts. I use them for cutting up celery because I tried throwing them, and I almost amputated my toe. A throwing dart, I could put my eye out with it. This takes real skill to use one of these things. I just thought it would be cute to have around, like, physically. Oh, Mr. Burglar, you better get out of my house or I'll throw this dart at you. Hopefully it's a stupid bird. Maybe be intimidated by that. But the simple fact of the matter is these things are extremely difficult to learn how to use. Shit, they're sharp though. And they are good for cutting up meat and steak. And since I like to cook, I use them as cooking utensils is what I'm using them for. I've lost my train of thought. I hate when that happens. Anyways, thousands of years ago, we didn't have hospitals or libraries or universities or even written language or civilization. If you heard something rustling around in the bushes, you knew that could be something bad. You didn't really have a chance to psychoanalyze it or make friends with it or whatever. If you saw a monkey from a different tribe, you knew he was probably going to steal all your coconuts or all the female monkeys from your tribe. So you had to grab a rock and smash his head. You had to cooperate with other members of the tribe because we are not an individual. I mean, despite what people say, individualism is not something that exists in our deep, dark past. We were tribal. We were communal. We had to function as a group. Now, the group would have a hierarchy, and the person at the top liked individuals because he wanted to do whatever he wanted to do. But he still had to get the approval of his subordinates because someone could sneak up behind him and take him out with a rock or hit him with a bow and arrow or spear him in the butt, whatever. You had to keep your tribe happy. But liberal ideas like everybody should get along, we should share, although sharing outside your group, because in the old days we shared because we were communal, and then society became more complex and hierarchical, and we moved on to mercantilism, and a society based on slave, and then actually capitalism. People think that capitalism is a conservative thing. It really isn't. Conservatives were very much into mercantilism and the church and the state. The church owned land. The aristocracy owned most of the land and controlled most of the economy, and they didn't want merchants having too much power because that would be a challenge to their power. Now, with the French Revolution, it wasn't for what was his name? Not John Adams. Oh, and I was doing so good, seeming intellectual. Adam Smith. And the Wealth of Nations, The Birth of Nations, D.W. Griffin. I'm getting confused. COVID left my brain completely. And this is why I go spare. This is really, really why I go spare. Because my dad died. For the first 2 weeks of the COVID thing, we were down with it. Our last 2 months, and it'll be over. And we're kind of good citizens types. We're not libertarians. I guess we were always brought up to be not leftist. And people confuse us communitarian, and there are people to the center right that are communitarian. And I think the conservatives used to be communitarian. It's not, because I remember my parents saying, "You kids these days, you think you can do anything you want. It's all about the individual, and you don't care about your society or your church or morality." And now the left has gotten more communitarian, and the right has gone crazy with, it's all about the individual and making money, and the government can't tell you what to do. And our economic system, to be honest, we've accomplished an awful lot. But you can take a good thing too far, which is why I think Roosevelt was such a great. If you look at the period of time after the New Deal from FDR, which is about the Depression was bad. But even the Depression, the economy was coming back at about 9% a year when FDR was in power. Unemployment was going down till 1937, when all his economic advisors says, "Look, Franklin, can I call you Frank? I know people are telling you to spend like a drunken sailor, but someday you're gonna have to pay this off. This is gonna be inflationary. It's just no way to run an economy. You got to put the brakes on all this spending. It's crazy." And so he did, because he listened to him. And you know what happened? That's the recession that screwed up the recovery that was going on, because the economy was still weak, and the Keynesian policies hadn't stuck, and immediately we went back into a severe recession. So the thing about World War II is there's nothing more Keynesian, there's nothing more stimulating to an economy than a war. Nobody was out of work. All the men were drafted. All the women had to go to work in the factories, building tanks and planes, and we were the arsenal of democracy. Now, did socialism do that? No. But the government played a big role with the unions, with Social Security and unemployment. But because of a little bit of intervention by the economy, by the time a war was open in the 50s, and 37% of the population was unionized, and the top income tax bracket was 90, which sounds really high now and probably wouldn't be a good idea to return to. Although people didn't pay 90. They had tax loopholes, yada, yada. I think the real rate was more like 75. Some people say that the wealthy did not pay 90, that it was more like half of that, which is like 45. And now they pay like 35 or 40, which I don't believe. I think the tax rate now is about 35 or 40, but actually rich people now pay about 12, 15. And it used to be they paid about 40, 45 of their income. And there was a lot less income disparity, but the economy was still growing. Now, we didn't have competition because World War II had taken out all our competitors. But what was going on in Europe? Germany. They call it the German economic miracle. Same thing with Italy, the Italian economy. And the British, which had many socialist policies, even though their economy wasn't coming back as fast, it still grew 40% from 1945 to 1960, which is really uncanny for any other period of growth. The Germans in that period grew at a rate of about 200 or 300%. The French, it was about 100, 150% increase. The Japanese was like 250, 300, maybe 400. All the economies in Europe and Japan were just boom, 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 boom. And none of these economies had laissez-faire. The government, Japan had MIDI. The French had what they called dirigism. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. But the French economy was always very weak compared to other economies. They didn't have big corporations. They weren't very good at competing. So what they did is they nationalized a lot of small companies and made them big. Eventually they did privatize them because state industry is problematic. But they really didn't have any big industry, so they needed to do something. The French economy grew at 5% for 30 years straight. So during that period of time when the Democrats, which are with centrist, or maybe, by American people said the Democrats were socialist. Trust me, by European standards, that they're conservatives. Germany had a very pro-market. Scandinavia had very pro-market, but they had a large welfare state, and they had what they called ordoliberalism, which is like the state tried to stay out of things to let things grow, but when they saw that it was necessary for the state to intervene, they created a structure for like infrastructure and education to foment growth. But I mean, obviously, it wasn't socialism where the state. I mean, real socialism is pretty impossible, and that's why it always ends in a disaster. Having the workers control the means of production. The initial 6 months of the Russian Revolution, that's what was going on. And Lenin basically was the first fascist. He said, the people are too stupid to run this. They need a vanguard of intellectuals like us, which kind of scares me because I always think, if you just put me in charge of things, I'll make things better. But you know who did that really good and actually did that? Lee Kuan Yew. He moved the People's Action Party from a center-left party to a center-right party. But that's a communitarian society where individual rights, if you get out of line, they'll beat you with a cane. You sell drugs, they hang you. You sell illegal guns or pornography, I don't think they hang you for pornography, but they'll put you in jail for 10 years. You smoke marijuana, you're going to jail for a long time. I think they just recently legalized being gay. So they're not socially liberal at all. And they have a lot of pro-capitalist policies. But the state owns a lot and controls a lot of the economy. Almost everybody lives in public housing. Most of the hospitals are owned by the government, but it's not socialized medicine. It's not free. It's not a free lunch. It's subsidized, but you have to pay something because the thing about things being free is then demand goes up because people like free things. If ice cream was free, there'd be no ice cream. That was the thing Germany did. They did away with price controls because although people could afford things, you couldn't find them. And then finally they did away with price controls and production went back up. And once production goes back up, prices go down. So yeah, the market's great. But that isn't conservative in the classical sense. Classical conservatives, you don't really find a lot of them in the United States. When you see these people, singing "God Save the Queen," the monarchists, they're traditional conservatives, and they're not libertarians. They're not into everybody doing whatever they want. It's they have kind of a feudal attitude. You defer to the king. What I believe is, I used to be very much for the common man, but I just realized now how stupid he is. And I hate to say that, but it's just, this whole COVID thing has really, really upset me. It's really upset me because I see and I know you have a whole nation that thinks that elections are faked, that Barack Obama was born in, things that are just objectively not true. And you can research, and an intelligent person will realize what is real. And a stupid person is conservative. Because why? Because he has to fall back on what is easy and what works. And what worked for humanity for tens of thousands of years is there's something in the bush. It's rattling around. Where's my club? I'm going to kill it to protect our tribe. And it's kind of intuitive. If you stick a germ in your arm, that doesn't seem safe. And a mask, you putting a mask over your face, it's like a little kid. You put a mask over a little kid's face, and they're going to get upset because they don't like that. An intelligent person will realize why. Masks do work. The ones that my sister got from the hospital were 90% effective. So I got those. I'm kind of a hypocrite because me and my dad, after 2 months, we'd had enough of this crap. We just had enough of it. We really, really did. And so I just sat on the couch and ate pizza. And that caused, this is why I think I know, and I'm not a scientist, but I think I know where this whole heart thing problem's coming from. and it's not from vaccines. I sat on but I'm not a 19 or 20-year-old kid, but I think I know. I sat on the couch and ate pizza for a whole month and gained 50 pounds, and I couldn't get off. My blood pressure shot through the roof. There was extra salt, and the doctor said, Bill, you're going to have a heart attack if you don't, I mean, I know that there's COVID, but just put a mask on, go outside the house and walk around. You got to get some exercise. I think the one thing that COVID probably did do is that it depressed people because they were isolated. There were negative effects. I don't think it was the vaccine. I think the vaccine saved us because that way we could get out. We didn't have to wear the stupid masks, and we could go back to work. Look, if they didn't have those vaccines, it would be like China. Look at China right now. They don't have an effective vaccine. They're trying to get one, but people are dropping like flies over there. And why? Because they locked people down to stop it from spreading. Because they didn't have an effective vaccine. And once they let them out, oh my God, people, the vaccine just spread everywhere. You have no idea. This is what makes me so angry. You have no idea what a lifesaver those vaccines were. And what a testament it was to the science, technology, and genius of the American free enterprise system, with a little coordination from the government. And all of a sudden, you've got these conservatives talking like they're communists. Oh, they're just doing it for money. Like, since when is doing something for money such a bad thing? Our whole society is based on the profit motive, and all of a sudden you don't think making things for money is... I mean, there are examples. There are a lot of examples of where the profit motive is bad, like pollution. Look at, like, strip mining in West Virginia. It's ugly, and pollution. Cars. But let's be rational. Before cars and before industry, were people better off? No, life expectancy was like less than half. People died of diphtheria, and I mean, hello, polio. Would you rather not take the polio or the smallpox vaccine? Have you ever seen what happened to people with polio and those iron lungs? That's what you're doing, you idiots. And if you're watching, I want you to know how stupid you are. Just how unbelievably brainless you are for spreading these lies about the heart thing. And again, I'll tell you why young people are dropping. My theory. I mean, maybe someday they'll find out why this. Look, people were sedentary for 2 damn years. They sat in front of their computers and watched Netflix for 2 years. Do you think that's good for your heart? They weren't out. It made people depressed. They were isolated. So yes, the whole lockdown thing wasn't healthy. I mean, should people have been walking around? I guess they did in Sweden. Then we really would have had a problem. There was no really good answer. There was no win-win situation. It was all lose-lose. The Swedes never, ironically, it's supposed to be like a socialist society. The Swedes never locked down. They were like, if you're old, stay home. If you got a bad heart, you're susceptible. We'll send somebody around with your groceries. I don't think they even made people wear masks. Now, this is the thing, though. The death rate from COVID in Sweden was... Now, I don't always get these figures right, so I might be off. And if I am, correct me, and I will apologize. But I know they were higher. I think it was 4 to 5. It might have been just 2 to 3, but I think it was something... Like the death rate in Sweden was like 4 to 5 times higher than in, say, Norway or Denmark. It wasn't any higher than it was, say, in France or in Germany or in Britain. But that's because these countries are very densely populated. Other Scandinavian countries aren't. They're not very populated. But compared to surrounding countries that did lock down, their death rate was like 4 to 5 times. Unless you think it's a conspiracy. But the Swedes did not lock down. There was no win-win situation in that. I don't know if their economy really benefited from it either, because Everybody else was locked down, so they couldn't sell their Volvos or their IKEA furniture to anybody else. Although I'm sure Spotify, was Spotify Finland or is it Sweden? I listen to a lot of Spotify music. Anyways, I'll tell you what it is with the heart thing. It's assholes like me sitting on the couch eating pizza for a month instead of exercising. My sister finally got me a treadmill, and I'm doing better. It's good for my heart. My heart's a lot better. So that's if you want my speculation, and I'm not a doctor, but I think that's what it is. People overeating and just sitting around being depressed. Did the vaccine contribute to that? I think that Israeli study that I saw said there might have been an increase, a very tiny increase. But you know what else causes heart attacks? COVID. And COVID gave me a mini stroke. That's why I'm so angry. I was left discombobulated in the brain. I was never all that brilliant before, but now I'm just a malfunctioning robot. I really am. COVID really messed me up, and it was because I listened to all that freedom. You know, they're making us wear masks, and this communism, and it was before the vaccines came out. But me and my dad we were kind of stayed home and wore the mask when we had to, but we were getting kind of tired of it, and then we were dead. We caught it because it's about the time Trump caught it, and my poor dad died. He was 94, and I'm 400 pounds and morbidly obese. I almost died. So thanks a lot. You didn't get vaccinated. You wouldn't wear those masks. So guess what? You killed us, and you left me completely crippled. So I hope you feel great about that. Now, do the vaccines cause heart attacks? If you vaccinate, because billions of people have been vaccinated, if you vaccinate 1 million people, you might have 3 or 4 cases of heart attacks. Now, if you take that same 1 million people that didn't get vaccinated and look at the heart attacks, it would probably be 10 times higher. And you know why? Because the non-vaccinated people got COVID. COVID causes problem to the breathing. And if you can't breathe, you have a frickin' heart attack. So there you go. So that's why I'm a little ticked off. Yeah, so I looked at the study, and it said that there's no causal link between heart attacks and the vaccine, and that actually there is a direct causal link between being vaccinated and lower death rates. Significant, like an 80% decrease, or is it an 80% increase? A lot more people die in counties where people aren't getting vaccinated. And that's just the difference. Say the rate's between 70 and 40. Significant difference. If you're not a vaccinated person, you're dying. Now, if you are vaccinated, are the rates of heart attacks higher among vaccinated people? Actually, what the statistics show is no, the opposite. If you get COVID, you're going to have a heart attack and you're going to die. So there might be some risk, but the risk is negated by the fact that if you catch COVID, it's much worse for your heart. It really, really is. So, like, nothing's perfect. Like, is there a risk of some heart problem with the vaccine? There might be some minor one. What are the risks to not getting vaccinated? Infinitely higher. Death, heart attack, long-term, long-haul COVID. I mean, the benefits of getting the vaccines outweigh the minor disadvantages, and that's the scientific. And if you don't believe that, it's because you don't have a scientific mind. You're just not smart enough you're functioning with your old monkey brain that says, I don't want the government telling me that I have to take a vaccine. Well, you know what? Too bad. You got to stop at a red light. You got to pay your taxes. You should probably have to license Americans. Here's another one. I just go spare with the Americans and their right to bear arms. There is no right to bear arms, even in the Constitution. A well-regulated militia being necessary for a free state. Basically, the states have a right to form militias, and in order for there to be militias in the old days, people had to have guns. So your duty was to have a gun. The right to keep and bear arms was really your duty to keep and bear arms. In 1903, we passed the National Guard Act, and in 1916, there were more laws passed, which basically, 1903, you weren't allowed to bring your own gun to the militia anymore. The militias would provide you with a gun. And in 1916, the militias were put under government control and basically turned it into National Guard. So the whole thing about a well-regulated militia was now a National Guard. So the Second Amendment was obsolete. People shouldn't even mention the Second Amendment because it doesn't apply to anything anymore. We don't need militias. You're not allowed to form a private army. There are actually laws against forming a private army. You're not allowed to start your own militia to overthrow the government. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. If you study the Shays Rebellion in 1787, some people think, now it's not certain, that that was the reason why we had a constitutional convention, because the government had no response to this rebellion of farmers that didn't like bankers. They couldn't pay back their loans, and so the bankers would foreclose, and then they couldn't pay their taxes either. So they started rounding up bankers, and they started and basically an anarchist stream and tax collectors, and basically saying, look, we don't need you to govern. Piss off. So the wealthy, because we still had wealthy, who were owned the banks and everything, needed the government to intervene and put down this rebellion. So the whole Constitution wasn't to limit the power of the government. It was to actually strengthen it. And the Second Amendment wasn't to create the right of people to overthrow the government. It was just the opposite. That's still treason. Basically, to create, since we distrusted having a national army, and we didn't have a very large one. The whole thing about the state militias was they were used in the South to round up slaves. It's not a good thing. The whole history of the Second Amendment is not all peaches and cream. I mean, it was nice that people could defend themselves. But I mean, guns can fire bullets, just, bang, 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 bang. In the old days, maybe if you could get off 3 in a minute, or a puckle gun. It's just ridiculous. And I don't think that you have to license black powder guns. I think they aren't even considered firearms anymore. They're not regulated. So the technology that they used back then isn't regulated. But you stop making stupid arguments. The technology we have today is just so infinitely more dangerous. If you're saying, well, the First Amendment applies to television sets and radios, well, here's the thing. We have something called the FCC. So actually, and if you want to stage a protest rally, you have to get a permit. So to say that the First Amendment is not limited, you're wrong. There are limits on the First. There's no such thing as an unlimited right, because your right to bump up against other people's rights, your right to swing your fist stops when you punch somebody else in the face. Okay? So stop with that crap. And the Second Amendment shouldn't even exist. It should just should not exist. We should get rid of it. Should average people be allowed to own a gun? Yeah, if it's licensed and registered. There are countries in Europe that don't ban guns, like Switzerland and Italy and the Czech Republic. But you got to get a license for a handgun. Even in Switzerland, you have to have a license for a handgun or a semi-automatic rifle, anything that has a lot of firepower. And I think they have to be registered too. Regular hunting weapons, not so much. There's very little regulation, but except when you're transporting them, you've got to store the ammunition separate, and there are definite rules about you can't walk about with them. There's no such thing as concealed carry in Switzerland. Well, there is, but it's very rare because there's no need for it. There's no crime. All right, now that I've ranted about that for over half an hour, the worm that ate Cleveland. I had a great idea for the worm that ate Cleveland. Men in Black, which I think I'm going to watch. Again, I've seen it many times. They have little worm creatures in there, and the worm celebrities. So we might actually the aliens next door, and I might actually, when we're hunting down the zombie serial killers, and this is another thing you're not going to like. I'm gonna in this science fiction movie, I'm gonna claim maybe Antifa too, because I'm not really thrilled with Antifa. There's an organization called the Iron Front, which is pretty reasonable, but see, the both extremes are bad. It's like saying pick a side, communist or Nazi. Well, they both killed millions of people, and they both claim that the other side is worse than the other. But the simple fact of the matter is that's a hell of a choice between communism and Nazism. How about you just be rational? And it's like Deng said, it doesn't matter whether it's a black cat or a white cat. If the cat catches mice, it's a good cat. Doesn't matter if the cat is black or white, as long as the cat catches mice, it is a good cat. Like Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, he started on the left, he moved to the right with pragmatic policies, and now Singapore is this technological dream, but it's not based on individual liberty. If you get out of line, they hang you. They either beat you with a cane or hang you if you sell drugs or guns. The government has a lot of state industry. They have the Provident Trust, and they also have Temasek, which is like a holding company. So that way, but they have right-wing policies too. Like, I don't think there's a minimum wage. I think there might be a negative income tax. They don't have a lot of welfare programs. It's just, but they have a mandatory savings program so that people, like Bismarck's old welfare state, you set aside your own money so that when you get in trouble, you have something to fall back on. So the government's like your parent, die Vaterstaat, which worked out for Germany pretty good too. You can't let people do whatever they want because people are stupid. They're just freaking morons. But so I guess, are the aliens going to have that attitude too? They're going to have kind of a smug, elitist, liberal attitude too, I suppose. But because I can't believe it's not chicken was like a meat substitute. We're going to have to go after serial killers that are vegans and hunt them down because they've been infected with the alien virus. And it turns them into aliens like it turned me into an alien. Or was I an alien? Basically what I am is I'm sort of a semi-deranged person. You don't even know if I was a has-been science fiction writer. That might have been part of my delusion. You really don't know. That's the surreal aspect of the screenplay, the movie, or the book that I'm writing. You just don't know what level of reality this guy's function on. His whole life might just be a daydream. Rene Descartes, cogito ergo sum. So anyways, me and the aliens next door, the gay hermaphrodite aliens that live next door, one day they just were in Hollywood, and he goes, you want to go visit some extraterrestrials? And I go, well, what are you talking about? You're the only guys on this planet. And they go, no. Madonna, she's an alien. Sylvester Stallone, alien. And you go down the list. He says, Kanye's an alien. L. Ron Hubbard. I go, you're kidding me. He says, yeah, these people are just they like to fuck with humanity, L. Ron Hubbard thought Scientology was a big hoot. Kanye's having a great time, Go on Alex Jones, black men saying he loves Hitler. You think any of that stuff is really true? I said, what about Alec Jones? Is Alec Jones an alien? He goes, well, of course he is. He's one of the lizard people, damn it. Have you ever noticed how he looks like a frog? I said, I don't want to visit Alex. And I says, we'll find a nice elitist liberal alien for you to visit. Like, I don't know. Who do you like? How about Jimmy Kimmel? You really like him. How about Jay Leno? And I don't know whether these aliens are shitting me or not, but that's the whole thing. It's like, so you're telling me Jay Leno with all the cars is an alien? He says, do you think a human being would be that obsessed with automobiles? That's definitely an alien fetish. But I said, it's just so cool. He says, sure, it seems cool to you, but you humans, you never would have thought of just collecting thousands of cars. That would never. I said there are other people that collect cars, and he says, yeah, but not like Jay. Jay, look at how what a great job Jay's done. And I go, so Jay's an alien. He says, yeah, it's like you collect matchboxes when you're a kid. Jay came here to collect real cars, you know. I mean, look at his jaw. Does that look like a human being to you? And I love Jay Leno. I think Jay Leno is wonderful. I really, really do think Jay Leno is wonderful. But Men in Black did that. I thought that was kind of cute. So I don't know if I'm ever gonna bring this screenplay together. But that would be kind of nice, you know, exposing Alex Jones as a gay alien frog person. It's like nothing against him being gay. That's okay, but it's just to expose him. He hates all these groups. And think about it. Think about Alex Jones. Take a look at his face. Does he look human in the least? He looks like some sort of lizardy creature. I'm telling you, Alex Jones is a lizard person or a frog person. He's an alien just having a laugh with us. That's all he is. He's one of our lizard overlords, and he's just mocking us. So, and I'm not saying you should do anything bad to Alex or anything like that, but come on. I mean, it's just so obvious. It's staring you right in the face that Alex Jones is exactly what he claims to be fighting. He is part of the deep state lizard overlord ruling class that's oppressing you. I'm telling you. They're messing with you. Do you think they want you to be healthy? Do you think they want you to be well educated and wear your mask? So they want to spread this COVID shit because that's the alien disease. Now my alien friends, they feel really bad about it getting loose, and they're not sure if it was them or somebody else did it and framed them for it or gave them infected worm. Because that was the culture that I can't believe it's not chicken was made on, that they were going to make so that they could buy equipment to fix their spaceship, which I guess is sitting in their basement, buried underneath their basement in their house back in Cleveland. Or was it moved to Area 54 by the government? Yeah, I don't know. So anyways, the government doesn't want us to expose Alex Jones because even though he's messing with people, he's transferring, and those health products that he sells, they're no good. They make people sick too. But they got to deal with him for a transfer of technology. And they're trying to keep the population down. And they can't come right out and say, you know, we'd rather some of you actually don't take wear the masks and take the vaccine, because some of you have got to die off, because the planet, global warming, it's killing everybody. So lowering the population a little bit, maybe that's not such a bad idea. So Alex Jones talked them into it. Says, I'll give you some alien technology if you let me go on TV and mess with these people. And it's not like he has this diabolical evil plan to wipe us out. He's just fucking with us. Why? Because it's funny. Aliens like to mess with us, especially the stupid people out there. Think of the alien conspiracy as Russian misinformation. America's the greatest country in the world, and they want to see us at each other's throats. And you make it so easy, America. You make it... And Trump. You think Trump is a real person with the orange skin and everything? I mean, isn't that obvious? That Donald Trump is a frickin' alien? And he's got you all fooled. My God. The lizard people have you conned. So go ahead. Don't take the vaccine. Because you know why? Because the lizard people want to turn you in to MAGA zombies. That you get that COVID virus in you, and please don't. Well, you know what? If you want to shoot bleach into your veins and kill yourself, you're probably doing us all a favor. But if you're smart enough, please listen to me. That's not a healthy thing to do. Don't drink bleach and don't take a syringe and shoot it into you. The vaccine is much healthier. It will cure it. It will make you better. It's not going to hurt your heart. It's a calculated risk. Sure, there's a risk with the vaccine, blood clots and such, but it's a very low risk, and the risk of dying from the COVID virus is infinitely higher. There, I've said it. You don't believe me? I'm telling you what Donald Trump is. He's an alien. And he wants you to be a zombie. And COVID will, if it doesn't kill you, will turn you into a zombie that wants you to. That's why you think we have all these mass shootings. It's not just guns. Although they like having guns because they like to fuck with us. They like to mess with us. The whole thing with COVID is it's creating MAGA zombies. I'm not quite sure about Antifa. I don't even know how to explain Antifa, because I mean, obviously, any extreme is bad. The Iron Front was the organization that was during the Nazi times. There was the Nazis, there was the Antifa, which was communism, and there was an organization called the Iron Front. And the Iron Front was liberals, social democrats, or democratic socialists, and centrists who opposed both the communists and the monarchists and the fascists and the Nazis. They were trying to defend liberal democracy. So maybe you got a point about Antifa. But my God, to side with Nazis, what is wrong with you? Yeah, it's like curing a headache by shooting yourself in the head with a .38 caliber bullet. You know, it's like say you got a brain tumor and say, well, I know how to cure that. I'll just take this gun and blow my brains out. Not a good solution to migraine headache. That's not a good solution. Or taking a hammer and banging it on your head. That's basically what you're doing when you're trying to solve communism with Nazism or solve Nazism with communism. It's like you're choosing between lung cancer and emphysema. It's not a good choice. So anyways, that's another aspect to the whole alien movie. We might be go visiting Jay Leno, who's an alien, because he collects cars, and I like to collect cars. But he's a good alien. He's not one of the bad aliens that wants to mess with us. Alex Jones is a bad lizard overlord. Jay might be a gray, you know. He's just here having a good time, doing what he can. I think Jimmy Kimmel's an alien too, and he's a good alien. He's for universal health care and reasonable gun laws. Of all the people in Hollywood, and I think most of them are a bunch of sick degenerates. Very talented, some of them, but Jimmy Kimmel's not one of them. Jimmy Kimmel is a really decent guy. I really like him. So I think they're not all the aliens are bad. They're like my alien friends that live across the street that are trying to hunt down the let's see, what did I write? The cosmic force that took over the universe, or the cosmic monsters, the cosmic yuppie vampires who took over the universe. Yeah, that was the 80s book that I wrote that made me famous, and now I'm trying to make a comeback because I ran out of money because my heating bill was too much, and I had to cancel The Economist, and I don't have enough money to live on, so I got to write another book. And so instead of yuppie vampires, like They Live, I'm so derivative. I'm just copying other people's ideas. Now it's going to be the MAGA zombies. And the MAGA zombies have the alien virus in them, which Donald Trump wants. And Donald Trump is an evil lizard overlord who wants people to get infected so they'll become serial killers. We may be able to get the yuppie vampires on our side for this. I don't know if the human race is going to be able to survive with all these aliens infiltrating our society. But who knows? This is just a delusional science fiction writer, or maybe he's not even a science fiction writer. Maybe he's just having a psychotic breakdown and thinks he's a science fiction writer. I don't know. But this is fun. It's a fun plot. And remember, the vaccines work. They're not giving you heart attacks. The masks work, although we're beyond the masks. We don't have to wear masks because the vaccines worked. The Chinese didn't have an effective vaccine, and look at them. They're still dying. It's not good. Although, what the hell is going on in Russia with the whatever happened? And in Belarus, the guy just told you to go in the sauna and drink vodka. Yeah, like that's great. You never hear what's going on there. It's just so sad to me that our old monkey brains. It's logical why people would fear a vaccine, sticking something in your vein. But try to remember this. I don't know if there was resistance to the polio vaccine. There's always been resistance to wearing masks historically, and there's always been resistance to vaccines. But just think if we didn't have vaccines. I mean, these plagues that used to come through our society, the Spanish flu, smallpox, chickenpox, diphtheria, rubella, polio, for God's sakes, polio. People had to live in iron lungs, and that's going to be coming back, thank you very much. And smallpox, all these old diseases, the bubonic plague that modern medicine wiped out because you don't want your precious little child. You believed some moron that told you that your kid's going to have a heart attack or be autistic because of vaccines. The first vaccine, I guess, was about the French Revolution. But before widespread use of vaccines, our average life expectancy was, in 1800, I think it was about 30. About 100 years later, it was up to about 45. And now, in most places, it's about 80. So before you drag society kicking and screaming back into plague times, try and think rationally with a scientific brain. Societies with rights come responsibilities, and during an emergency, during a war or a health emergency, you have to sacrifice your individual rights for the common good. And an example of a society that did really well with that is Taiwan or Singapore, where people are used to wearing masks and they're used to kind of working together. Now, are these societies communist? No, they're not. They're in many ways they're very conservative, but they're conservative in a different way than the United States thinks it's conservative. We're not conservatives. We're classically liberal and to a radical, insane. We've taken the principles of the Enlightenment and turned them on their head. Every individual, there are 8 billion individuals on this planet, and we can't all do what we want. And when we do, we serve our alien overlord, Donald Trump. And remember, Alex Jones is an alien frog creature who's just messing with you. Do you know how cruel it was to the people that where was that mass shooting in Connecticut? I can't remember. It's like Stockbridge or Stony Brook. I can never remember the name of it. Let me see here. Oh, there's Todd Grandi. I really like him.
From a book. During an incident in September of 2020, when Troy was driving a truck, Susan's 22-year-old daughter found her semi-conscious. Troy told his daughter to announce Susan's death online. Susan's daughter posted a message on Susan's Facebook page, which read, quote, "Author Susan Meechan left this world behind Tuesday night.
Sandy Hook.
Better things." The message also made a reference to the
please, Dr. Grandi, don't sue me. You have no affiliation with me. Although I really like Todd Grandi. Although I don't like it when he makes fun of the Democrats. But he's got a right to he evidently thinks that the politicians that I like are complete assholes. But he's not an anti-intellectual person. I'm sure he has great reasons for thinking they're all incompetent. It's like the old ways. You could agree to disagree with somebody and still respect them. You can't really do that too much anymore. Okay. Oh, God. Please, please listen to me. I'm not that smart. Well, I am actually very well educated. I have a master's degree, but not in science. I know a lot of really smart people. Get vaccinated. If you're sick, wear a mask. If the COVID load is high, we're not out of this thing yet. And one of the reasons we're not is because you're being stupid and you won't get vaccinated. Do the vaccines cause heart attacks? No, they don't. Not really. It's a very, very tiny risk compared to the negative, harmful health effects of getting COVID, which are increased by not using the vaccine. But the vaccines aren't going to kill you. God, I can't believe how stupid people are. And what really bothers me is that there isn't an overall effort to try to explain these things. People say, oh, well, there might be some tiny risk, and it's blown all out of proportion. It was a study in Israel, and as much respect as I have, because Israel isn't a backwards. I mean, when I was a kid, Israel was kind of like, not backwards, but it was like Portugal or Greece. It was a sort of a middle-level country. It was one of the poorest rich countries. And now it has a standard of living slightly better than Germany. They've really come up in the world. Ireland used to be poor, and they came up in the world too. All these people that they thought were like backwards didn't like that. The Chinese in Singapore, the English used to call them little yellow monkeys and say, well, these people are little children. The Irish are just little drunken monkeys that dance on tables. They need us to take care of them. And all these people just said, piss off. We're Jews. We don't need the British to protect us. We can take care of ourselves. The Irish said the same thing, and I know the whole thing with the Palestinians, and I don't want to get into that. And I'm not saying that everything Israel does is great. I don't want to even touch that. But you have to admit what the Jews have accomplished down there in Israel. I mean, really, objectively speaking, they've got one of the finest armies. They took, like, for example, look what they did with the French. The French stopped selling them the Mirage fighter, which was an outstanding fighter. De Gaulle said it was because they struck first, but basically it was De Gaulle realized he could make more money selling to the Arabs than he could selling to the Jews. A little bit mercenary, but hey, money makes the world go round, buddy. So don't make the French out to be the bad guys. The French, the reason why Israel won the 6-Day War was because of the Mirage. And no one was selling to the Israelis. The French gave you those planes. And after the French stopped selling, you bought the Phantoms from the United States. But before, the whole Israeli Air Force, look at it, was Mirages and Mystères. The reason the state of Israel exists is the same reason the United States exists. The French decided that the reasons that they participated in the Revolutionary War was a very French reason, and I have French ancestry. They wanted revenge against the British for the loss in the 6-Day War, and they got it. They got it. But we never would have had a country if they hadn't sent over military advisors and just a boatload of guns and muskets and cannons. We never would have won. Israel probably, very likely, as valiant as their fighters were, if they hadn't had those French Mirage and Mystères, that was how they won the 6-Day War. They preemptively, and let's not be too hard on the Israelis. They knew they were going to be attacked, and they just attacked first. They got a lot of guff for that. But, at one point, Israel's like 10 miles thick. It's very hard to defend a country that small. Alexa, which is bigger, New Jersey or Israel?
New Jersey is 8,723 square miles, which is 203 square miles larger than Israel. Israel is 8,520 square miles.
Alexa, what's the population of New Jersey?
According to the 2020 U.S. Census, the population of New Jersey is 9.29 million people. which is a 5.7% increase over the 2010 U.S. Census.
Alexa, what's the population of Israel?
In 2020, the population of Israel was 8.69 million people.
Basically, Israel is New Jersey, okay? I mean, well, Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of New Jersey?
New Jersey's GDP per capita is $62,100
Yeah, everybody says
dollars and 94 cents.
New Jersey's really not a pit. That's pretty high, actually. That's one of the... Alexa, is New Jersey one of the wealthiest states?
From Wikipedia.org, New Jersey is one of the wealthiest states in the U.S. with the third highest median household income as of 2019.
So, I mean, they make fun of New Jersey, but New Jersey is it's not Mississippi or Puerto Rico. They've got a decent standard of living. It's better than California. I think New York is on top. There's Connecticut and Massachusetts. Alexa, how wealthy is New York?
As of 2016, the average per capita income in New York was $34,099 U.S. dollars. The median household income is $55,191 U.S. dollars.
Alexa, is New York one of the wealthiest states?
From TimesUnion.com,
She gets
New
things
York
wrong.
is one of the wealthiest states in the nation.
Okay. Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of New York?
From MarketCap.com, the state of New York, where just short of 6% of Americans live, had a GDP per capita of $76,627 in 2019.
Oh my God, that's very much. That's way above the average. So again, you can say New York is a pit, but they're like our richest state. You know, nobody's still overtaken them as far as money. They've got high taxes. They have they're very restrictive with like gun laws and things like that and regulations. And they've got their problems, but it's not a poor place. They got money. So anyways. But Israel is tiny, and it's surrounded by people that want to kill them. And, okay, I was going back to the story. The French, and again, don't be bad at the French, because if it wasn't for the French Mirage and the Dassault Mystère, very well, Israel, like the United States, may have ceased to exist before it was even, in its first 20 years. And I'll tell you why. Those planes attacked airfields in Egypt and in Jordan and just wiped out their MiGs. It was a fine, outstanding plane. De Gaulle sold it to them until he figured he could make more money selling to the Arabs. Is that anti-Semitism or is that just good business? I don't know. But again, anyways, my point was the Israelis snuck those planes out of the country. They said, all right, you don't want to sell it to us? Fine, quick, put it on the boat. Put it on the boat, put it on the boat. I mean, de Gaulle said, all right, fine, you get those last Mirages. They took those Mirages, and they've done this with American military technology too. They took it apart, they looked at it, and they improved it. They made a better plane. This is a very tiny country. It's like Sweden. Sweden's a tiny country too, with like 10 million people. But they invent a lot of stuff. It's like the Swedes have the Griffin or something like that. They also have a high-tech fighter. But it's one of these tiny little countries that's done very remarkably well in economics. And all these people, the Irish, the Jews, and the Chinese, the British were very racist and said these people are just basically monkeys and they need to be supervised by us. And what all these ethnic groups did is they, on their own, they surpassed Britain, and they have these vibrant, dynamic, technologically advanced society. They proved through their own hard work and industry that not only are they capable of functioning on their own, but they can excel and beat everybody. I mean, the Israelis have a standard of living that's per capita higher than Germany. You know, the Germans that thought they were a master race and superior to everybody, and then they thought that the Jews were inferior. Well, Israel has proven, at least economically, I don't know, I mean, there's a dispute between standard of living and quality of life. You can have a high standard of living and still not have a good quality of life. Some countries, I think it's Denmark. Well, Denmark has a high standard of living and a high quality of life. But the countries that have the highest quality of life aren't necessarily the countries that have the highest per capita incomes, although they're close. The happiest countries or whatever. And happy countries are countries where people feel secure. They don't have to worry about losing their house. Healthcare is accessible. Crime rates are low. If you want to investigate that for yourself, go to the Legatum Prosperity Index. And a lot of these countries, if you go to a libertarian site, the Cato Institute, not only do they do well with financial security and democracy, but they also do well with individual liberty also. They're not at the very top. I think the ones at the very top are Switzerland and New Zealand. And all the conservatives are mad at New Zealand because they passed very strict gun laws. Owning a gun doesn't make you free. It just means you're going to get drunk and shoot your family or your neighbors or yourself. So, I mean, there's more to freedom than being able to own a bazooka and keep it in your garage unsecured. It's crazy Americans. But do a little research about this, the vaccines causing heart attacks, because it's bull. COVID caused a lot of heart attacks. They think there might be some correlation with vaccines and heart attacks among the young. But again, benefits outweigh harm, and the greater risk of getting a heart attack is if you get COVID, because then once COVID is in your system, it can kill you, and one of the ways it can kill you is by giving you a heart attack. I bet you didn't know that Jay Leno was one of the good aliens. Well, he is. I mean, what human being would collect all those cars like that? That's just so OCD. But Alex Jones is a bad lizard alien, and he just wants to mess with you. Remember that.